Good evening and welcome to SIMRACERS Revival. We are at Silverstone today, the 1991 version of Silverstone. We are here for the F1 1984 series, sometimes referred to as the F1 1984 Masters. So we are set for 40 laps around Silverstone in 1991. So this is the old layout, the much preferred layout as far as I'm concerned. It has the interesting back section underneath the bridge and the old front straight that you'll remember from the championship days of Nigel Mansell. But we're going to be racing with the 1984 cars, so slightly different in terms of power and tyres. So let's have a look at what we've got in store. So we're going to be using the 1984 cars, which do have two engine modes to them, a qualifying mode and a race mode. There is a mixture of turbos and naturally aspirated cars in this car mod that we are using. So that will be very interesting to see how they match up around what is a very high speed circuit. But again, balance for these engine modes. Qualifying is obviously faster, qualifying mode, but fuel consumption is a lot more. And then you have race mode. Fuel consumption is a little bit less. It's a little bit less, and but it's slower than qualifying mode. So that's where we are. Now our drivers do have a choice of what tyres they can be on today, so softs, mediums and hards. I don't believe we're going to have any wet weather today, and I'm not sure there'll be too much difference between our compounds of Goodyear, Michelin and Pirellis, but good to watch out for whether the naturally aspirated engines are going to be beating the turbos on these long straights at Silverstone. So our drivers are currently out on track doing some practice at the moment, but this is the fourth round on this championship. Last time out we did take a trip to Monaco, which was a very interesting race. So this is currently how the season standings are at the moment. We have Michael Stoy at the top that wasn't actually here last week. He has 2 wins at the start of this season, but wasn't here for round 3 at Monaco. So his lead is getting a little bit smaller, of 40 points, due to Becky Ely Clark, who won last time out at Monaco. A dominant victory, it seemed, with Marco Salavaggio not far behind with 32. Vito Martino always up the front, thereabouts, always battling with Ely Clark as well. So we'll see if Martino is going to be in the mix today with 26. And then we have Johan Nieuwenhof, good result recently, and is level on points with Vito Martino in 5th. Then you have Matthias Bergel in 6th, Josef Muller in 7th, Ronnie Ruger in 8th, Gianluigi Giletti in 9th, and Thomas Rosa in 10th. So that's how our points currently sit for what will be 7 rounds. We've got to put the 7th round on the back of that table, but we'll come to that in a minute. So, as far as our schedule is concerned, as I say, we have 7 rounds in total today. We are at Silverstone 91, but we will be heading to Hockenheim on the 27th of April, then Monza on the 11th of May. Then our last round, as was tradition back then, in the 90s, Adelaide will be our last race. A bit of a gap between last 2 rounds there, so drivers have perhaps, if it comes down to a championship decider, perhaps they will have a lot of thinking to do, a lot of setup work to do for Adelaide. But we'll have to see what happens on the 8th of June. So that is where we sit at the moment, as our drivers are out on track at the moment. They're just doing a little bit of practice. So why don't we actually join them? So I am your host, Neil Wood, and I will be taking you through 40 laps of Silverstone. So we can see some of the cars out on track at the moment. They've been putting some practice times in. So we're currently looking at an Arrows BMW, I believe. That is Vito Martino. So coming out the final corner and up the old pit straight. And Salvaggio coming under the bridge section, which is familiar from some of the camera shots from the 90s. Love that section of the track. I don't know if our cars are actually going to get a bit loose going under the bridge. But we'll have to see some of the pedal tracers and see if they actually do lift. Coming out the final corner again. So the final corner, Woodcote. And up the main straight. So Matthias Bogle coming through the final section of the lap in his Lotus Renault. Same car or teammate of Becky Ely Clark. Currently second in the championship. But Bogle has some catching up to do. Just looking down my cheat list here. So 22 points in the championship so far. Currently 6th place. But Martino has unfortunately had some bad luck, I would say. He did finish well in the second round at Buenos Aires, but finishing 7th at Monaco. A lot of drivers did have a little bit of trouble at Monaco. A few spins and a few collisions with the barriers, but yeah, it was a very interesting race to watch. So if you check out the Sim Racing Revival YouTube channel archives, you can see the previous races that we did. All very an interesting watch. I really enjoyed some of the action. Really enjoyed it. So Salvaggio currently in second place on the practice times at the moment. So practice time to beat is 125.5. Now I have noticed that a lot of people do, in practice they work on their race setups, and then suddenly the floodgates are opened, the engine modes get turned up in qualifying and they go even faster. So that 125.5 is possibly going to be very, very slow compared to what they're going to be doing in qualifying, so we'll have to see. So Salvaggio on our list is currently 3rd in the championship, only 32 points away from the lead. In fact, no, 32 points in the championship. He's only 8 points away from the lead. Then we have Michael Volker. Now, if you were watching last time out at Monaco, I believe Michael Volker did seem a little bit anonymous because the titles, I didn't quite get them updated. As we see Salvaggio just behind, having a little bit of a spin, breaking a little bit too late. Michael Volker didn't have a name for much of practice and qualifying until I actually was able to find out who that was on track, but now he's got his correct name up there. So it is Michael Volker in the Williams. So Ely Clark currently 2nd in the championship, but that stunning race in at Monaco. Wrestling that car around the streets of Monaco is no small feat, especially that Lotus Renault. So running slightly wide at the end of the lap here. So this section comes through Brooklands, Luffield. So this is Luffield here. And then through the final corner. In fact, that was Luffield. This is Woodcote. It's only a slight turn. It's not really a turn, is it? And then onto the pit straight. So Schuerkamp in one of our Tyrrells. We did have 3 Tyrrells last time out. 2 of them look very, very similar. With the kind of a burgundy paint scheme there. But there's another Tyrrell that turned up in our Monaco race, which was had a Union Jack on it, kind of a special edition type Tyrrell. So 3 Tyrrells in the field, but the Ares BMW quite striking with its Barclays, a nice cream paint job. So I think Martino would possibly want to try and improve where he was in previous races. He's got some catching up to do. 4th in the championship. A good top 3 would do wonders for his championship chances. Now I'm looking down the list as well. I'm trying to find if we don't seem to have our championship leader here today. So again, that would be points dropped for our championship leader. So only the 5th round, 6th round and 7th round to go, so not long. We're just, after this race is done, we'll be past half distance. So not long to go for these drivers. And it is a long old race, being 40 laps long. So it's over an hour. And that's a long time around what is a very quick circuit, particularly this layout of Silverstone. So the layout we're using is 1991. And 1991 until 94. 5.2 kilometres, 3.24 miles. It does have a lap record on that particular layout of a 122.5. That was by Damon Hill in the FW15C, the Williams car back in 1993. So, very classic layout, very reminiscent of those days of the old Williams Honda. So one of the last layouts, they started to put chicanes into this circuit, slowed it down a little, but not by an awful lot. So if you've ever driven the 1970s version of this track, then in these cars that would be pretty much flat out. So Andy Schremser in the McLaren, currently 4th on the timesheets at the moment. So Andy Schremser, I'm looking down at the list, and we're just about to go to qualifying. So Andy Schremser, I don't think has scored so far. So we get points all the way down to 12th place, starting at 20 for a win, and so it's not like the old point scheme. So it's a little bit lenient. So 20 for a win, 16 for second, 14 for third, all the way down to 12th place, which has 1 point. And we can see that is that. That's possibly Bogle trying to get out first. That is indeed. So apologies for the little lags there. I think it's people joining into the server a little bit late, and I think it is our championship leader that's joined in late. So Michael Stoy joining right at the end of practice and going into qualifying. But drivers have just under 25 minutes for their qualifying, so that's a long old time. So I'm getting some strange anomalies with my track map. All the drivers don't seem to be following the line that's set on the map, so that's going to make things very interesting. So a short lap, 125-ish. Got to find a little bit of space. I don't think you really want to be behind another driver. So Martino coming through the last section of the lap. It looks like Lotus Renault is just behind. I think that's possibly Ely Clark. So maybe Ely Clark wants a car to follow. So coming out the last Luffield turn here and onto the main straight. So probably a half a second gap, maybe a little bit more between Martino and Ely Clark just behind. Ely Clark maybe just wants a cheeky toe perhaps. So coming through the first section of the lap, going through Copse. Looks like Martino made a little bit of a mistake, so now that's going to be slowing down Ely Clark. Through Maggots and Beckett's. Yellow flag on track. I'm not sure who that might be. I can see Schuerkamp has probably come to a stop somewhere. So Bogle coming down to the end of Sector 2, as is Martino. So into Vale and through the club corner. There's a spun car there. They had to be very careful coming out of that corner. Looked like an Arrows BMW had gone around. So Bogle currently second on the road, putting in the times. He is the first on the road, so he's going to be putting in purple sectors. You would think fastest on the road as it currently sits. We'll keep an eye on what time he's put in, but Martino's not far behind. So Bogle is going to come across the line, and he's going to put a 125.7, so still time to find from practice. Still 2 tenths away. Martino's going to come across the line with a 124.1 and quickly beaten by Ely Clark at 124.0. So I did say that the times would come down from practice. This is qualifying trim, full-on mode. So Ely Clark, after that stunning lap, I wonder if she maybe came a cropper with Martino there, because Martino was slow in the background, so maybe Martino got a little bit of a wiggle on. Now Ely Clark wasn't far away, wouldn't have been too much. So I'm seeing Galetti has come to the top of the timesheets with a 123.6, so that's the time to find in his ATS, and we switch to Galetti here. So obviously that ATS is handling well. Didn't seem to be handling well on the exit of the Maggots and Beckett section. But down the hanger straight and into Stowe. Car bouncing around. Doesn't look very comfortable to drive, but I don't think these cars are very comfortable to drive through Vale and into Club. And trying to get the power down as quick as possible. It's very difficult because that corner opens itself out and seems a little bit off camber. Going through Avi curve and under a bridge. Heading on to what is a second, third gear corner at Priory. And through Brooklands. Yeah, these corners seem to go on forever until you can really squirt on the throttle coming out the final corner. So Galetti, after that explosive provisional pole lap, is coming into the pits. Pit lane is a little bit tight for our drivers, so that chicane as we come in, it's going to prove very, very difficult. It looks like Salvaggio has popped up into second place, 2.5 tenths away from provisional pole. And that knocks championship prospect Ely Clark in third. So still 4 drivers at the bottom of the table, the bottom of the tower rather, have still to set a lap, but plenty of time to go. So an early down change for Salvaggio coming under bridge. That looks like possibly a Lotus that's off there on the infield. So our drivers will have to do an out lap, a fast lap, and do their in laps. Can't stop out on the circuit. And I will have to double check the points after this round as well, to see if there was possibly some penalties handed out. We did have a few drivers getting warned by the stewards about stopping out on track after their qualifying laps, so they've been given read the riot act by the stewards, and hopefully they will not be doing that in future. So Salvaggio gets even closer now, 0.18 away from provisional pole. So that Renault, particularly powerful, a fast circuit like this. Probably a lot of turbo lag in that car. So with 18 minutes to go, Galetti still leads. Salvaggio second, Ely Clark in third, Martino fourth, and Bogle rounds out the top 5. Bogle's got a little bit of time to find with 2 seconds off the pace. But plenty of time, as I say. Galetti goes into turn 1. Let's have a look at some of the some of the telemetry. Let's see what they're pushing on. So coming through these Maggots section, 4th gear, runs slightly wide, just missing that curb on the outside. That means not a very good exit onto one of the longest straights on this circuit. Down the hanger straight into Stowe. Slightly wide. Probably would have want to be hugging the apex through there a bit more. So down to third gear for this section. Again, slightly wide. As we come up to the Abbey curve. So fourth gear, fifth gear. Let's see if we lift under the bridge. It is completely flat out until you get to the bottom of that hill. I don't fancy that the drivers will be wanting to brake on that crest, as the car will get a little bit light. So you basically go on the bridge and hang on for dear life, and hope you don't run wide. But flag out on the circuit. Looks like Martino's come to grief somewhere. And fifth going through the first turn again to look at another lap. So let's possibly look at our championship leader. So championship leader Brabham BMW wasn't here the last round, so dropped some points there, but is here today. So whenever he's competed, he has been on the top of the podium. So the first round that we did broadcast at Buenos Aires, Michael Stoy seemed like he was settled for third place, but as luck would have it, he was able to capitalise on problems for Ely Clark and Martino and was able to come through to the lead. So it looks like a car just off ahead. I wonder if this is going to get in the way of Michael Stoy. No, he's off the track, so no particular dramas. Bit of traffic ahead though. Let's see what kind of sectors we're putting in. 31.6 first sector. So possibly a personal best. Bridge corner down the hill. So at the moment this is our only Brabham in the field, powered by BMW engine. So he's going to get a little bit of a sneaky toe off, I believe that's our pole sitter Galetti, who's coming into the pits. It may have actually put him off coming out the final turn, so maybe it washed a little bit wide. He's still got plenty of time to get a representative time in. So that was actually his out lap, but that kind of ruined his final corner run onto the main straight. So Salavaggio still in third. Ely Clark has now gone up to provisional second place, 0.06 of a second away. That is a margin, a very, very slim margin. So the top 5 are covered by 1.5 seconds. As I say, Bogle's now got closer in 5th, but still 1.5 seconds off the pace. Got some time to find there. But Galetti now on an out lap. Let's see if he can put in any better of a time. So let's take you through some of the other drivers in the field. So we do have, let's have a look at Schuerkamp just coming into the pits in his Tyrrell. As I say, we have 2 Tyrrells in the field today. We had 3 in Monaco. So we've also got Thomas Rosa in his Tyrrell coming through turn 1. Car bouncing all over the place. I believe the Tyrrell, one of the naturally aspirated cars in the field. So maybe suffering a little bit from top speed Currently down in 10th place on the grid, 4 seconds away from pole, so maybe that is the advantage of the turbo. We also have Josef Müller currently in the pits. The Benetton Alfa Romeo. We haven't seen Josef Müller out on track. Oh, he has put in a time, but I don't think that's representative of what he could do. As we cut to, and unfortunately, Andy Schremser getting that corner all wrong. I think that's near the end of the lap. Indeed, that was coming through club as he comes back out on circuit. So Galetti putting in times. Hopefully, Schremser is off and away by the time he gets to him. So Galetti manages to pass Schremser coming up to the bridge. And down through Priory, meeting that apex. So characteristic of these cars, and it's probably because maybe these drivers have set up these cars quite tightly sprung, so they do bounce a lot. So Salavaggio currently in third, only 0.6 away. So Galetti has improved his time. He's now down to 123.1. So maybe a Silverstone specialist. Look at Lotus trying to get out of the way of that Renault. He's just about to come across and perhaps better his time. So currently third, 0.6 away. He goes up to provisional second as Matthias Bogle comes into the pit. So that was a stunning lap. Now 0.5 of a second, but Galetti still piling on the pressure. 123.1. Will we see in the last 20 minutes, or last 10 minutes rather, will we see drivers dipping into the 122s? That is a Tyrrell. Unfortunately, I don't think Galetti could avoid. He was going full speed down there and collided with that Tyrrell. So it looks like that Tyrrell had got it all wrong coming under bridge. So that possibly will end Galetti's hopes of bettering his time. He still has 0.5 of a second over the rest of the field. But that was just unfortunate. That Tyrrell couldn't get out of the way in time. He had perhaps got it all wrong coming over that crest, and he was broadside across the track. So hopefully drivers had their hands off the wheel. Salavaggio getting a little bit squirrely on the exit and possibly goes back to the pit. So Galetti will possibly not take any further part of this qualification session. So what have the rest of the field got? Can they close up? 0.5 of a second. It is close between Salavaggio in second and Ely Clark in third. Martino not far behind in fourth either, but Bogle is winding himself up, getting closer and closer. Now down to 1.2 seconds away from provisional pole. So Ely Clark crossed the line, 123.4. Now only 2 tenths, or nearly 2.5 tenths away from pole. So it's there for the taking. Rosa goes around at the bottom of, I can't think of where that corner was. Was that club? That was possibly club corner. Or coming out of Vale as we see Vic Martino entering that part of the track. So Martino 6 tenths away, but he's not far away from Salavaggio in third, so that might be a scalp he's able to take at the end of qualifying. So Ely Clark, let's see what she can do. Looks like possibly having a slow down lap here. That car does not look very nice to handle. Lots of snappy oversteer. As I say, it tries to get on the throttle but just can't get that power down. So much power but not enough grip. letting the Brabham BMW of Michael Stoy through. So only 0.2 to find. It's just not. It's not much. In the scheme of things, it's probably the width of the front wing. So with just under 7 minutes to go, it's Galetti that's on provisional pole as Ely Clark comes to the pits. Maybe another change, perhaps. Lacking a little grip in the pit lane, it seems, because couldn't get that thing slowed down. So Ely Clark in second, Salvaggio not far behind in third, Martino in fourth, Bogle in fifth. Stoy now representative time perhaps now up to sixth, 2.3 seconds off provisional pole. So a bit of time to find. Again, I don't think we're going to see Galetti coming out of the pits due to that accident. Hopefully they're both okay in terms of their wrists. I believe it was a Tyrrell that got hit. It may have been Schuerkamp, because I'm seeing Schuerkamp in the pits at the moment. So Schuerkamp can possibly, if he wasn't able to get back to the pits, he possibly will be another driver that will take no further part in this qualification session. So Michael Volker currently in 8th place. Michael Stoy in the Brabham BMW. So he did join quite late into the start of qualifying, so a little bit of time to get himself warmed up. Joseph Muller currently in 12th place. So by the looks of it, 12 cars on the grid. It means that everyone will possibly score points. We do have rules to do with classification, so drivers will have to complete a certain amount of distance before they do receive points. So the points at the end of the race will be provisional until I get the official result. But points down to 12th place will be awarded if they do finish. So Michael Stoy currently in 5th place, 0.8 of a second. Just over 0.8 of a second behind the provisional pole. Martino, can he find anything more to perhaps get up on that front row of the grid? He's currently in 4th place at the moment. That's Salvaggio is tantalizingly close. So through bridge, down the hill. We are using an automatic director, so our director is concerned about Galetti in the pits and missing some of the on-track action, but we come on board with Martino as he comes through the final Luffield section and into Woodcote. Get my power as quick as possible. It does say that he's got a purple sector in the second sector. So coming across the line, that puts him, it does put him on pole. So Martino goes straight up to pole position with a 1:23.0, so not by much. He beats Galetti by 0.2 or 0.12 of a second. So Martino meeting that Benson at probably the worst moment on the track. Joseph Muller was just trying to stay on the racing line, putting in his fastest lap, and Martino had only just finished his, so if Martino was going to be doing another fast lap, that was possibly not this one. So with just under 3 minutes to go, Martino now leads provisional pole, Galetti second, Ely Clark in third, Salvaggio in fourth, Michael Stoy in fifth. So going through the final section of the lap, our provisional pole sitter now, Martino. Depending on how much fuel he has in the car, he may go for another go. I'm just looking at the track map. He's got space ahead of him, so if he's not coming into, he's definitely not coming into the pits this lap. So Another push lap for Martino. Banging off the rev limiter coming out of Luffield. And Woodcote through the first turn of Copse. Up to Maggots and Beckett's. And then through Chapel Curve. At the end of this section and onto the Hanger Straight. Hopefully getting the power down as much as possible. Using as much of the track as possible. It's tough to get the rhythm right for that Maggots Beckett section. But looks like the track is very rubbered in. And that should hold over to our race. So it looks like he's going even faster in the first sector. I know it does display on the screen as being a purple sector. I'm not entirely sure that is the case. But we'll see by the end of the lap. So it comes under the bridge. That will start his third sector here. And he's just got Luffield and hopefully Woodcote. It looked like he might have ran a little bit wide of the apex. But over the line he goes. So stays provisional pole. I don't think there was an improvement in lap time, so slightly down in the second sector. Now the driver I think I want to watch is Ely Clark, because Ely Clark has a chance getting closer and closer. Look, 0.27 away from pole. So pushing on. Looks like a lot of oversteer and understeer, but coming into the pits, that is her final effort. So no further change for Ely Clark. So the best she can do is third on the grid. Possibly a little annoyed with her performance. Can't quite keep some of the acceleration of that Lotus under control. But another driver that could improve his time is Stoy. He's been getting faster as the session goes on. Currently 5th place. He has about 2 tenths to find to get up to 4th. So across the line, that will be his final lap, and that is only 5th position. Michael Volker currently in 8th. Looks like he's going very slowly there. So possibly just winding down. That doesn't look like... No, this looks like he's possibly coming to a stop there. Joseph Muller comes across the line. Goes up to 8th in the final part of this session. Joe Reebok won't be improving. Gets it all wrong coming out of Chapel Curve. Bouncing away. So very tightly sprung, these cars. So it looks like that's possibly all she wrote, as they say. So let's set our grid for the race. So we have our grid all set for the race. Let's have a look at our starting order. So looking at our starting order, changed right near the end. Martino was able to grab pole after that huge accident by Galetti. Unfortunately coming to grief with a Tyrrell broadside across the track. Ely Clark grabs 3rd with Salvatio in 4th. Michael Stoy up to 5th championship leader with Matthias Bogle in 6th. Andy Schremser makes his way up to 7th, and Josef Müller gets up to 8th. Joe Reebok in 9th with Michael Volker in 10th. Yu Schuerkamp in 11th. And we should have a 12th runner. I did see someone may have escaped the server on session change, so I'm not sure who we've lost. It's Thomas Rosa we've lost. So I think Thomas Rosa was possibly in 12th. We'll have to see at the time of gridding up. So drivers will possibly be trying some practice starts to make sure that they've got their clutch bite points in the right place. So drivers just going around the track now to get warmed up. They've got to remember to take their qualifying setup off. You see that driver at the end of the straight here, I think that's Galetti. So he is undamaged. No injury. He's trying to get his clutch bite point. He's going to be on the front row still. So he had enough of a margin to stay on the front row. Very tightly sprung. There's a nasty bump coming into Stowe Corner on the inside there. So I think drivers are going to have to watch out for that as the tyre wear comes down. So drivers also have the opportunity for a pit stop in this race, so it'll be interesting to see whether people try for a one stopper or a two. It may be all set for a one stopper. But we will see what the strategy plays out. So gone are the streets of Monaco, those tight turns and those Armco barriers. We now have a little bit of space to race. The wide open straights of Silverstone, the 1991 layout. Very classic layout where the front straight is in its original position. It's now moved to the other side of the circuit. So Martino trying a little bit of a clutch start. The need to bleed out of the clutch and not dump the clutch straight away, because we've seen a couple of drivers not being able to get off the line. They bogged down pretty quickly, and thankfully some of the other drivers have been able to avoid them. We'll see what happens, who gets off the line correctly. So Martino and Galetti will be on the front row. And just taking points of Galetti from before. So Galetti was actually not here in the last two rounds. He was here in the first round, which unfortunately we weren't here for, the broadcast. The first round was actually at a circuit called Jarama in Spain. So Galetti, by the looks of the position sheet, managed to get a third that time. So looks like he's a driver that's on top three pace. We've got some spaces in the positions. There's a few drivers we possibly were expecting today, but we don't see, which is a little bit of a shame. So hopefully we will see them next time out as we head to Hockenheim, and then we head to Monza and then Adelaide. So that's our last three rounds on the board. That should take us through May and June. So what are these Lotuses going to be like getting off the line? We've seen them in some of the high-speed corners. They've been having trouble getting the power down. So Volker. Now we will have a formation lap, and then our drivers will settle in, form up on the grid. So we'll possibly see our drivers weaving a little bit to keep their tyres nice and warm as we are winding down the seconds of warm-up. Not long to go until the green light. So our drivers will be doing a formation lap. I did see at Monaco some of the drivers decided not to weave around. They just wanted to take it a little bit easy at the start up to the grid. So we'll have to see who is going to be the biggest winner and loser in terms of positions gained and lost in the first few laps of this race. So smoking engine for Stoy. He's been still for too long, but that's to be expected as we're gonna roll over to the grid. So 40 laps of Silverstone over an hour's racing. The hour's race does go very, very quickly, I've found. I've also found that it's a frenetic start. Positions gained and positions lost. Sometimes a little bit dramatic, and it seems to calm down a little, and then you have the pit stops, which opens things up again for strategy and changes of position. So 12 drivers on the track. What is going to happen? Is this going to change the championship? Can Michael Stoy go for 3 wins in 3 starts? That will push his championship lead away from the rest. So out on the grid. So that's Martino and Galetti on the front row. Away from the grid they go. And then just behind is Ely Clark and Salvaggio. So Arrow's BMW at the pointy end with ATS. And I believe that's an ATS BMW as well. With the Lotus Renault of Ely Clark just behind them. And then we have the Renault of Salvaggio in 4th. The Brabham BMW in 5th. So a mix of cars in the top 5. All different teams. I don't know if it's a coincidence that the BMWs are performing well here. But we've got 2 Renaults. We've got 2 Lotus Renaults, 3rd and 6th of Ely Clark and Bogle. 2 Tyrrells in the field as well, Rosa and Schuerkamp. So Rosa did pop up to 9th in the end. That's where we'll be starting on the grid. Unfortunately, we did have a disconnection just before the session change, but he is back. So Rosa in the Tyrrell. So no particular weaving around, so drivers keeping their tyres cool. They don't want to overheat the tyres in the first few laps. So these tyres possibly very, very sensitive to temperature in the first few laps. Possibly sensitive to wear as well. So coming through the last few corners. So Martino got a little bit of a head start on the rest of the field here to come up to his grid spot. He's going to be on the front of the front of the grid for quite some time. Galetti is hung back a little. So you possibly need to make sure that you remember where your grid spot is. It's all on a curve here. So the grid bends around the corner, so depending on where you are on the grid, it could be slightly awkward. So it looks like our field is in position. They're mostly on the front straight here, none of them having to bend around the corner. So Martino on pole. What kind of start can he get? So off they go. Galetti gets an absolute shocker from 2nd position, and Ely Clark is straight through. Could she even challenge for the lead? She does indeed. So through goes Ely Clark from the 2nd row of the grid into the lead. Martino must be wondering where that Lotus Renault came from. The rest of the pack is filing in behind. So it's Lotus Renault of Ely Clark, Martino, and Bogle up to 3rd. So those starting Renaults, they really have got the start sorted. Bogle came up from, I think, a 6th position and is now on the last step of the podium at the moment. So Ely Clark, Martino, Bogle, Galetti, Salvaggio. No particular... I'm not seeing any yellow flags at all, so everyone's got through the first few corners cleanly. That's good to see. So we're currently looking at Galetti as second position. Got an absolute shocker. Probably dumped the clutch, and that car seemed to go absolutely nowhere. Ely Clark pointed her car to that gap between the two, and it was through. Still had a little bit of a challenge to get through to the lead, but so the lead is up to 1.0 seconds. So can Ely Clark pull out a little bit of the lead out of draft range, leaving the rest of the field to fight amongst themselves? So further back, Joe Reebok is closely followed by Shurekamp there, and looks like Stoy dropped down as well. He's currently in 8th place, so championship leader Stoy in 8th. So must have got an absolute shocker off the line. So let's see in the first couple of laps who was the biggest gain and who was the biggest lose. So Bogle indeed was the biggest winner with 3 positions gained. So 6th place up to 3rd place. Stoy indeed, as I said, down 3 positions at the start. So not good for Stoy's championship chances if he's not got many points for being in 8th place currently. He's currently stuck behind a Benetton. But it looks like he possibly has the pace to get past. It's just a matter of where. So slight lift as they come up to bridge. Which way do you want to go? That part of the circuit was taken by a Benetton, so no way through there. So Stoy on the hunt to get back to a lot of points. Looks like that Tyrrell behind was slightly late on the brakes, nearly collided with the back. So Ely Clark currently in lead by 1.3 seconds. Now a challenge for Stoy. It looks like he has an overlap, using that power of the Brabham to get past just before turn 1 up to 7th place. So a gap has formed between 2nd and 3rd. The top 2 are away. It looks like a mistake from Ely Clark. I'm seeing on the timesheets Martino's now got ahead. So the lead has swapped. So all that hard work that Ely Clark did at the start has now been put on the back foot, because Ely Clark has now got to challenge and pass on track at full speed. 0.1 of a second is the lead, but Salvaggi are back in this group of 3rd, 4th and 5th. See the Renault power gaining on that BMW in front, or in fact that ATS in front rather. Galetti gets it a little bit out of shape, so possibly those tyres not quite up to temperature or in working range yet. That is a yellow flag. That is 11th place. That's Schremser that I think has gone round in Brooklands, but he's managed to get going again. In fact, Schremser has gone off again. That puts him to the back of the field, unfortunately, but 3rd, 4th and 5th. So Bogle is now being shadowed by Galetti. So Bogle in the Lotus Renault, followed by Galetti in the ATS, with that Renault of Salvaggio not far behind. So we did see that Renault of Salvaggio did gain a lot on the straight, but Galetti maybe fancied a chance at the end of the hangar straight, but wasn't quite close enough. So through this right-hander, hard on the power up the hill. So Galetti gaining all the time. I can imagine that Renault, I can see it in his mirrors. So that stalking away So it must be a hard position for Galetti. He's thinking about gaining on Bogle in front, but he's got to defend from that Renault of Salvaggio behind. So it looks like we have a yellow flag in Sector 2. That's 11th place of Michael Volker. Maybe a little bit of a spin, but has managed to get going again. Schremser is currently in the pits, so that spin, maybe damage, maybe technical problems. So Galetti having a lot of trouble going through the Beckett section. You see how much understeer. So this might give Salvaggio a chance. He's right under the rear wing, so fancies a chance at the end of the hangar straight. He's already alongside, and he's doesn't fancy his chances. So very interesting that he didn't think that he possibly had enough of an overlap to come up the inside. That was a great chance. He may regret not taking the chance while he had it. So a lot of tyre squeal from these cars. I'm not really surprised. So Martino still leading. Ely Clark now has 0.6 of a second to find. But this battle continues for 3rd, 4th and 5th. Stoy now up to 6th place. 4 seconds behind 5th place battle that we're currently looking at. So Schuerkamp chasing. That looks like Joe Reebok ahead. But this battle, now that Galetti has been released a little bit after the loss of momentum for Salvaggio, he can now go after Bogle. Maybe his tyres were fully up to temperature, but that mistake on the exit to turn 1 meant that Salvaggio says, "Thank you very much. I'll have that. Thank you. That's easy. Easier than doing it by at the end of the hangar straight." So Galetti, a slight mistake there. Looked like he was suffering through that section in the Maggots-Beckett's complex, but that mistake at the exit of turn 1 is very costly. Now it's Salvaggio's turn to maybe have a go at Bogle. So looking at lap times, possibly Bogle might be holding these guys up a little. 128.8 was the last lap around. So Joe Reebok coming down, changing down into 2nd gear, trying to get on the power. So in that Ligier Renault, looks like he's going to gain a lot of speed coming up against, I think that is a Tyrrell of Schuerkamp. Under bridge they go. Braking so hard. I thought he wasn't going to brake in time there, so different braking places for Schuerkamp and the turbo car of that Ligier Renault. So Salvaggio is now back to 4th and is chasing after Bogle in the Lotus Renault. But Galetti has not been dropped, so this battle for 3rd, 4th and 5th continues. So we have a battle for the lead, 1st and 2nd, under a second, but this battle is too good to miss. Our director is sticking with this. So Bogle goes defensive straight away, but the Lotus Renault of Salvaggio fancies to go up the inside, but he's going to be on the outside coming up to this turn. So that's one of the things about the overtaking at the end of the hangar straight. You're going to be on the opposite end unless you can get an overlap. So it looked like Salvaggio put his nose in there and made Bogle watch what he was doing, and ran slightly wide just before he got to bridge. That's a scary place to go off. So he had to take a little bit of a different line into bridge. So now Salvaggio can possibly pull away. He's now in 3rd place, 8 seconds behind the lead. So now Galetti, can Galetti pass Bogle into turn 1? Not quite this time, but he's under the rear wing. So through the Maggots Beckett section, it looks like that ATS is really struggling to keep the apex in that first part. But he gets a good exit coming out of the chapel, I believe, onto the hangar straight. Look at him gain in the draft. Pulls out. Will he have another go up into turn? He does not feel like he has enough of an overlap coming into Stowe. So coming down to Vale and hugging that apex. No! He goes slightly round, and unfortunately the car behind could not avoid, and I think that was Rosa. So possibly Rosa came around Vale and saw an ATS sideways across the track, and he could not avoid him. So hopefully no damage done. So Galetti, after his good qualifying up on second on the grid, has now been knocked down to 7th place. So a lot of work to do. So I did expect that Stoy was possibly going to pull away from Rosa here, but Stoy has got this Tyrrell in for company. So this is Brabham BMW versus Tyrrell Cosworth across the line. So this is for 5th and 6th place, so still a battle between 3rd and 4th. In fact, it's now stretched, now that Salvaggio has got past. He's been able to pull away by 2 seconds. So we didn't check out the tyres before, whether everyone's going to be on the same strategy. So looking at our tyre choice, it looks like Ely Clark has gone for the softs. Rosa is another driver that's gone for the softs, so interesting strategy perhaps. With 9 laps gone, I'm wondering whether that will work out in the long run, whether she thinks she can get the softs a bit longer. And that looks like Rosa, I believe, has gone around 7th place. So after all that hard work staying on the back of Stoy, he's now dropped down to 7th. And he will lose further position. So what happened to Stoy? He's currently stationary on the track, but we're sticking with this battle for 9th and 8th respectively. So Schuerkamp now on the back of, that's Muller ahead. So Tyrrell versus Benetton. Joe Reebok in the back there in his Ligier Renault, just keeping a watching brief. It looks like Rosa may have had a technical problem there. See that we went off the track and had damage, but that's our first DNF of the day. So unfortunately Rosa will not have any points from this round. So we're already a quarter of the way through this race with 10 laps gone. Martino leads now, has pulled out that lead from Ely Clark by 1.9 seconds. So maybe those tyres for Ely Clark are perhaps going off. She's on soft tyres. The leader, Martino, is on mediums. So Muller, does he feel like he puts up a little bit of defence? Doesn't need to. But Schuerkamp is piling on the pressure here. It looks like maybe a spin for Ely Clark, which has dropped her back a little. I saw the yellow flag on the screen, but we're concentrating on this 7th and 8th battle here. Muller goes defensive down into bridge. That would have been a hell of a passing manoeuvre going around the outside of bridge there. So the top 3 have pretty much spaced out. It's this battle near the rear of the field that we're concentrating on. So Josef Muller putting up a good fight against Schuerkamp. Looks like that Tyrrell possibly still has the legs for this Benetton, even though it's a naturally aspirated engine. So the Alfa Romeo, maybe a better handling car. We'll have to see maybe near the end of the race, but interesting to see who's going to be pitting first out of the medium and soft runners. So in fact our only soft runner is Ely Clark, because Rosa, I believe, was our other a soft shod car. And Shurikamp gets it a little bit wrong coming to the entry, and the car bouncing away. So indeed the lead has risen to 5.6 seconds. So as we saw in qualifying, Ely Clark was having trouble keeping the rear end of that car under control. That's an explosion. That is Joe Reebok on fire there. That engine has expired in a big way. So I did hear there was a couple of flat shifts possibly hitting the red line a bit hard there, and Joe Reebok has gone up in flame. So that car is going no further. So our second DNF of the day so far. That is unfortunate, and Joseph Muller goes around. So I wonder if he got it wrong coming to the end of the lap. It looks like the only casualty was one of those braking markers. So Joseph Muller goes around and Shurikamp is through to 7th place. But now we have a battle between Ely Clark and Salavaggio. So after Ely Clark's unfortunate spin, I saw on the track map there was a yellow flag, and it was our second place runner. So maybe those soft tyres wasn't their best choice. So looking at lap times, our leader last time out 1:28.9. Ely Clark was a little bit faster, 1:28.2, so she's able to match the pace of the leader, but soft tyres versus medium tyres. So does Salavaggio wait for an opportunity to get past? Or perhaps does he let Ely Clark? Or is he not going to wait? No, not quite enough room to get through turn 1. Did see a little bit of a mistake from Ely Clark, but not enough of a mistake. So it looks like that Renault does have a lot of power. Maybe the difference in chassis is making the difference. Ely Clark did see a little bit squirrely on the exit to some of the turns, trying to keep that rear under control. Salavaggio perhaps waving around in the mirror, trying to put Ely Clark off her game. In fact, she goes a little bit wide, but I don't think there was anything wrong. Managed to gain momentum. 8th place. Is that Muller gone around again? Muller has dropped to 9th, but we're sticking with the battle between 2nd and 3rd. Muller has got going again. So that promotes Volker to 8th. But through bridge. So Salavaggio gains a lot of time on the brakes, but loses a lot of momentum. And we also have this battle back between Stoy and Galetti back there. So Stoy has now made his way up to 5th place. Bogle, I still feel like he's the cork in the bottle there. So Salavaggio fancied to look up the inside again. You can see that rear end of Ely Clark looking a little bit loose. She's a little bit slower coming into some of these turns, so maybe that, I'm just thinking that maybe she will be the first to pit. So 14 laps gone. Here's the leader, Martino. We haven't seen much of him since he started. So Salavaggio, not quite the overlap. They were together as they came through that sector. That's why it says 0.0. But then we have this battle between Bogle, Stoy and Galetti. So Bogle, I did refer to him as a cork in a bottle. So still putting in the lap times. He's not particularly going defensive, but does Stoy have anything in the latter part of this lap? But still Salavaggio still pressuring Ely Clark, who gets it a little bit wrong coming through into Priory. Down into Brooklands. And through Luffield. As Ely Clark looks like she got it all wrong coming out. Got a little bit of a wiggle on So this means she may drop down. She's off the track. This may be possibly going to the pits straight away. Thinking, want to get rid of those soft tyres. So that means that Ely Clark is now down to 6th place. And she hasn't come into the... she does indeed come into the pits. So that now releases Salvaggio to go after Martino. 5.5 seconds to find... Salvaggio does seem to have a lot of speed in this race. So this moves Stoy onto the podium in 3rd, but Galetti feels like he has something to say about that. Tries to go up the inside, not quite enough room. Stoy has enough room on the outside to keep his momentum up. So come through into club corner. So Galetti losing a little bit of momentum after that little look at passing. So through Abbey Curve and down to Bridge. Late braking, losing a little bit of momentum. Stoy is able to get away just a little. So now that Ely Clark has pit, she's back to 6th place, 30 seconds off of 5th. So this is possibly a 2-stopper from Ely Clark. Now, I'm very interested to know whether she is on to... No, she's taken another set of soft tyres. So that's a very interesting choice. So it looks like she may have penned herself in for a 2-stopper, whereas the rest of the field could be heading to half distance. So half distance, we may see a flurry of activity in the pits of all these medium runners. Who's going to be the first to come in the pits for an overcut or an undercut? So Stoy still being shadowed by Galetti, 3rd and 4th, nose to tail. Not far off the top 2, see them just going out of frame. So Stoy, Galetti coming up to Bridge Corner for the 16th time. So only 2 DNFs so far. We saw possibly Joe Reebok abusing that engine. That poor Renault said, nope, I don't want any more of this, and set itself on fire. But we're not sure what happened to Rosa. We'll have to find out after the race. See if I can get any idea why Rosa possibly came to a halt. So no points for those 2 drivers this time around. So up to the Maggots Beckett sections, plenty of rubber on the track. You can see how dark the track is. All of that rubber from all the running in practice and qualifying is probably helping with the grip levels. So that's Salvaggio coming towards us. Galetti pulling out of the slipstream and is more than alongside this time, so Stoy lets him go. And after that pit stop, Ely Clark puts in the fastest lap of the race. 1:26.1, so 2 seconds, nearly 2 seconds faster than our leader. So now she hasn't got anybody on track with her. She can put in the lap times, so it's just qualifying run till the end. I wonder if our top 5 is possibly looking at lap times, and that Shurecamp gone around. That's just after turn 1, so that's unfortunate. That's now dropped him down to 8th place. He was battling with Michael Volker at the time, so I wonder if he just got a little bit loose coming out of turn 1 that spun him into the infield. So quite slow to get going, but no harm done. Doesn't look like there's any wing damage or anything like that, so he's able to keep it going. So 18 laps gone, nearly at half distance. Now can Galetti break away from Stoy in the Brabham? So Stoy is now within 0.8 of a second. So Galetti now out in front in third place. 127.3 was that last lap around. I did say qualifying laps from Ely Clark. That's another fastest lap, 126.0. So it won't be long before she's in the 125. So putting in a good fast stint. That spin, probably kicking herself for that spin. And it would have been helpful if she could should have been able to put in these fastest. Maybe pitting a little bit early, but she was being hounded by Salavaggio. So Story looks like it's not able to hold on to the pace of Galetti. Running slightly wide. Coming out of Brooklands. So the leader across the line. Second. This is third and this is fourth. So spaced out a little at half distance. It's only the top four that are really in reach of each other. So we look back at what kind of lap times Becky Ely Clark is doing. Coming across the line. Will this be another fastest lap? On 26.5. Not quite as fast, but still, I was going to say, the only driver in the 126s, but I'm looking at the lap times of Galetti. So now Galetti is up to speed and not being hassled by other cars. He's able to put in the 126s. So Salavaggio now up to second place and chasing after Martino. The gap has been cut down to 2.7 seconds for the lead. So Martino is lapping in the 128. So maybe he's saving his tyres for the end, but Salavaggio is making the most of it. So Martino coming against a lapped car here. And you can see this Renault in the background is gaining. The Benetton does wave him through. So maybe the Renault of Salavaggio is going to catch that lapped car at a more opportune place, and that is the hangar straight. So Stoy in third. Galetti has pitted. So exactly half distance. Galetti comes into the pits. So after the putting in the 126 that last lap around. So Galetti now dropping down to 6th place. So Ely Clark has gained 1. As Martino makes his way past another lap car. Salvaggio looks like he's gaining through this traffic. 1.1 seconds now for the lead. That was good watchful driving from, I believe that's Schuerkamp in the Tyrrell, letting that Renault through whilst trying to keep Josef Müller behind. So he had to be quick about it and be decisive about it. Ran slightly wide coming out of the final corner. So the lead cut down to 1 second. Salavaggio, no lapped cars in sight. Who's going to be the first to pit? Now from the pace of Vito Martino, maybe he's deciding to do a longer stint at the start. But we'll have to see who's the first to maybe bite. So Bogle is the next in the pits. Bogle is pitting from 4th place. His teammate goes past into 4th, so Ely Clark gains back her position of 4th place. Bogle now in 5th and away. So Bogle seems to have gained through the pit stops. Galetti seems to have lost out at least 25 seconds behind 5th place. As now we've got a real battle for the lead. Salvaggio fancies his chances against Martino, who's been struggling with pace at the start of this race, or saving what he has. He got a slow start off the grid. Got passed by Ely Clark. Managed to gain that place back, and he is first to pit, so possible undercut from Martino. Doesn't want to get slowed down by Salvaggio. But this releases Salvaggio. Is going to have to put in the lap times of his life. So Salvaggio, that last time around, it was actually being held up a little into the 128s, but he's now released, and he has a clear track ahead of him. So where will this put Martino? Martino is already out of the pits, and he comes out of the pits in third, ahead of Ely Clark, as you would expect. So Josef Müller and the battle with Schuerkamp battles on. I think that's a lap car. They're both lap cars. Stoy is trying to get past. This is ruining Stoy's strategy here, and I wonder if these drivers actually notice that that's a Brabham BMW that is not for position. So Schuerkamp is the next on the list to get lapped. So what kind of lap time is Stoy going to put in this lap? He got held up significantly in this slower section of the lap. So this works into Salvaggio's hands. So still trying to get past these lapped cars. So Stoy again now released. Will he be the next one to come in the pits? He won't. Schuerkamp is coming into the pits. So Schremser, after those problems early on, currently in 10th place, with Volker actually coming to lap him in 7th. So Schremser is quite a number of seconds down. So Josef Müller, now that Schuerkamp has pitted, he's able to get away. So as he's coming down Hanger Straight, Schuerkamp is back into 9th place. Didn't lose to Schremser. Schremser's far too far back. Galetti now puts in the fastest lap of the round, 124.9. 124.9. Has Galetti changed to softs? That's a very fast lap time. Where has he found that? Where has he found that pace? So it doesn't look like the tyres have changed. I don't know whether that's an error in the overlays there, but we'll refresh it just to be sure. No, he's still on medium tyres. So Galetti putting in the lap time of his life there. So looking at Martino, now Salvaggio. Salvaggio still leads and is pulling out that gap, still able to put in 127.6 on the board on worn tyres. Stoy is in the 128s, unfortunately. But Ely Clark, with all that time to gain, it's only 10 seconds behind Martino and putting in 126s. Although, as I say that, Martino is putting a 125.6, so as the track rubbers in and these cars get lighter, they're getting faster and faster and faster. So, what can Galetti gain back? Galetti is now back behind Bogle. So this is reminiscent of the first stint. So Bogle did take a while for Galetti to get past. So Bogle put a lap time in of 1:30 last time around, so I wonder whether he had a little bit of a problem. So past half distance, 24 laps gone. Salvaggio now leads. Stoy in second. So Salvaggio and Stoy have not pitted. Martino, Ely Clark, Bogle and Galetti have. So does Salvaggio think perhaps a no-stopper? Is that going to be the way to go? So maybe struggling to hold on to these tyres now. I see the lap time dropping down to a 1:28 for our leader. But Galetti still challenging Bogle for this 5th place. Does have a little bit of a pace advantage, but again, catching is one thing, passing is another. As the famous Murray Walker would say. So through the Maggots Bucket section, through Chapel Curve and onto the Hanger Straight. So Bogle instantly goes to the inside of the turn to break the draft. But Galetti, does he have enough momentum? He's not quite close enough. That camera angle is quite deceiving. It looks like it's possibly alongside. Bogle goes very wide over that curb, and that gives Galetti the opportunity to come past. So, slight mistake from Bogle, perhaps. That pressure from Galetti has now worked its magic. So, can Bogle stay with Galetti and stay in 6th place? So our leader still leads by 7.0 seconds. So back his pace back up to the 127.6 range. Michael Stoy just behind, 127.8. Martino after that pit stop, 126 dead. Ely Clark in 4th place. Lap times have dropped down to about 127.2. So that's the edge come off those soft tyres already. So even though we don't have too many cars close together apart from 5th and 6th here, drivers still putting in the lap time. Basically qualifying laps all the way to the end for some of these drivers. So I'll be interested to see if Salvaggio can keep this lead. Volker is our next driver to come into the pits from 7th place. Looking down the list, he will possibly might lose 8th to Josef Müller. In fact, no, he won't. 7th place is coming out the pits. And 8th place is just coming through turn 1 now. So he emerges in 7th place. So some different strategies going on. A lot of drivers doing a bigger first stint. That's a yellow flag out on track, but I'm not seeing any notification of who it is that's come around. It's 9th place of Schuerkamp that's off just before Priory, but has managed to get going again, so no harm done. Doesn't look like there's any damage for Schuerkamp. So that Tyrrell seems to be struggling today at the high-speed circuit of Silverstone. So Salvaggio, our leader, 7.6 seconds is the gap, so that lead is staying quite stable. But I'm seeing Martino pull up onto the back of Stoy, and the director is as if he was listening to me. So after that pit stop, Martino has been able to catch Stoy for 2nd place. So this happened at Buenos Aires. We saw the opposite way round. In fact, Stoy was leading at that point in Buenos Aires and felt he needed to pit to stay on the pace of the 2 leaders at that point, Martino and Ely Clark. And he was able to pit and then put in the laps of his life and come back through the field. Ely Clark looks like she's pitting for a 2nd time. That's Ely Clark on the left, dropping down to 6th place. So that means 12 laps to the end for Edie Clark. Qualifying laps 12. Qualifying laps to sort this out. Now, is Martino being held up, or is Stoy dragging him along? So last time 127.7 for Michael Stoy. Vito Martino 125.2 was his last lap, so now he's come up against Stoy. Those 2 seconds advantage have disappeared in lap time. But Stoy is on old tyres, I believe. I don't think Stoy has pitted it, and evidence of that is he couldn't quite get it stopped for the last corner. So side by side coming out the last turn. Martino had the momentum. Stoy got it all wrong coming into Luffield. So maybe Stoy is thinking he can hang on for 11 laps now. 27 seconds to Giletti in fourth. So we don't know whether a pit stop is actually needed in terms of where. Stoy's been putting in some very conservative laps in at the start, so maybe that has saved his tyres towards the end, but that's still would be an improvement from where he started up to third place in the end. And to take this championship, it's gonna be about consistency as well. So it will be a different leader. Well, not in fact a different leader, I mean a different winner this time out. So unless something dramatic happens, Stoy will not get his third win on the bounce. So Salavaggio still no evidence of coming into the pits. Passes the lap car at McLaren of Schremser in 10th place. So still putting in the 127, so still respectable lap times. Not even a hint of coming into the pits. Maybe he feels comfortable. He's had incredible pace. He's had to fight his way back through some of the field. He's had to make a lot of passes or make others make mistakes. As he comes through what is Club Corner. Vito Martino in second. Still doesn't seem to have much in the way of pace for him. 7.1 seconds. He's pulled out a gap to Stoy though. Stoy's now dropped back 2.5 seconds. Stoy just needs to kind of pace himself to the end. He's got a big gap for fourth place. And in fact, we are dropping back to it. So I wonder whether something happened to Giletti. It's a lot of a gap to drop back. 24 seconds. Bogle in fifth. And again after the pit stop, Edie Clark. It was an invalid lap last time around, so maybe she's pushing on to try and close the gap to what is her teammate on the road in fifth place. But Martino coming up against that McLaren that Salavaggio met earlier. So 9 laps to go. So this could be Martino's. He's got to push on to the end of the race. I wonder if Salavaggio is perhaps thinking of leaving something in reserve. That's 9th place of Schuerkamp that's gone round. You can hear in fact that's Schuerkamp just ahead of our leader. And Edie Clark puts in a lap time 124.8. 124.8. So fastest lap of the race so far. So Salavaggio getting past Schuerkamp. Put another lap on. So unfortunately there are no points for fastest lap. But Edie Clark is pushing on. Probably kicking herself for that little spin, because if it wasn't for that spin, she'd possibly be on the last step of the podium. So Salvaggio now 3.8 seconds of advantage to Martino. So will Martino's tyre life disappear before he gets to Salvaggio? Salvaggio is going to have to put up a fight on worn tyres. So the second car in the row there, that's Martino. So you can see first and second within the same straight. Muller and, is that Schuerkamp? No, that is Bogle just behind. So that's 5th place, lapping 8th place. So Salvaggio, see the lap car between him and Martino. Michael Walker out on his own in 7th place. Doesn't seem to have the pace to keep up with 6th of Ely Clark. And Josef Müller is quite far behind by 18 seconds in 8th. But Galetti is gaining all the time, but 22 seconds to gain up to 3rd is a hell of a gap to try and close in the last 7 laps. So Stoy, another of our drivers that we presume has not pitted, has now got, I believe, enough of a gap to be able to stroke it home. But 6th place Becky Ely Clark has gone for a really aggressive strategy. That's Muller in the grass. So Ely Clark, a very aggressive strategy on soft tyres. Felt she maybe needed to, but that spin possibly put pay to finishing high up in the order today. So Salvaggio again, 7 laps to go. So the lead now down to 4 seconds. Cameraman has found 5th on the road. So Bogle, who was behind his teammate Ely Clark before, but through these pit stop, he's able to do 1 pit stop, and Ely Clark has done 2. So Galetti has put in a fast performance here. He's able to put in the big lap times of 1:25 still. But that 19-second gap is a tall order. Maybe hoping from a mistake from Stoy. I'm looking at lap times of Stoy, 1:27.7. It's still enough. So with 6 laps to go, we would have to close about 2 to 3, possibly 3 seconds a lap to have any hope of passing. But Ely Clark still pushing on, 9.8 seconds. Now lap times drop to 1:28. That may be possibly due to traffic. In fact, she's alone on track, so maybe those tyres already given up. With only 6 laps to go, but still pushing on. See, that car is getting very leery. I don't fancy driving that thing. Stiffly sprung. As you can see from the entry to this corner by Galetti, it's very stiffly sprung. Seems to be the characteristic of these cars. And the lead now down to 3 seconds. I'm counting down the laps, counting down the seconds. Is Martino going to come onto the back of Salvaggio just to be into the last few laps? You can see them now within the same straight here. So I did say at the start of this there would be action at the start. There would be a little bit of a lull in the centre of the race, but there's normally a showdown at the end, and our drivers are putting on a great show. So a slight moment for Galetti. I saw the yellow flag. Looks like perhaps those fast lap times have taken their toll. And maybe Bogle in 5th is maybe fetching a chance at having a go at Giletti. If Giletti's tyres are failing, and he's not far behind. Only 3.5 seconds, so Salvagio, pacing himself to the end, is now able to put in a 1:26.2, so maybe he was saving something towards the end to use as a little bit of a defence. 5 laps to go. So Giletti comfortably in 4th, but Bogle is sitting there 3.5 seconds behind. Martino streaked off into the lead. That lead is now down to 1.7 seconds, so we may get a battle towards the end. We may have a 5-lap battle. It depends what kind of defence Salvagio has, whether he can really defend on worn tyres. So Martino has a bit of a lap time advantage, but we have seen people with lap times advantages not being able to pass as quickly as we think. So first and second now nose to tail. We have a 4-lap duel towards the end. What has Salvagio got left? Martino sniffed a little bit of a gap there. Thought maybe Salvagio was outbraking himself and thought he'd be well placed. So he needs to make himself large in those Renault's mirrors. So coming through bridge, he's able to stay close. Yellow flag in sector 1. That is 5th. That's Bogle that's gone around. But we are concentrating on the battle for the lead. So Bogle, unfortunately, with the pushing to try and catch 4th place of Giletti, has gone around. In fact, that looks like a retirement. So was that another engine exploding today? I did see that he'd stopped on track and couldn't get going again, so I'm wondering if that's another engine expiring. So unfortunately no points for Bogle. He won't make the race distance. That is unfortunate. But the battle for the lead. So that arrows BMW of Martino is able to hang with the Renault. Let's see what he's able to do on the straight. So the Renault of Salvagio gains a little bit as Martino got a little bit out of shape. Clipping those curves again. This is probably the first time we're going to see him go defensive. Martino jumps down the inside. That was a little cheeky, wasn't it? I'm not sure Salvagio would like that. He was basically dive bombed down into that last section of the lap. He basically said, "I'm coming through. You make up your own mind." But I'm not sure what kind of defence Salvagio could have put up. He did go slightly defensive to that corner. So we'll see whether Salvagio can catch at all. So the lead after all that now up to 0.8 of a second. He's got 3 laps to try and do something about it, but can he do something on these more worn tyres than Martino has? So that's a yellow flag for 9th place of Schuerkamp's gone around at Brooklands, but he's managed to get going again. So what has Salvagio got in return? It looks like he's able to stay with Martino. So just saving his stuff. Muller's coming into the pits from 8th. Drops to 9th. Salvagio can't quite get it stopped at the end of the hang straight, so maybe just running out of grip at the end of this race. 2nd is still a good position. So coming under bridge on the 38th lap of 40. So maybe that battle Was expecting a battle towards the end. Vito Martino got it done. Coming down into what I believe was Vale. So Martino now leads, back in the lead after taking the lead early on. Losing it momentarily to Ely Clark, but then regaining it back off screen. We didn't see how it happened. But then gained a little bit of a gap. So there will be 9 finishes in this race if everyone keeps going. 39th lap of 40. It doesn't look like, I'm looking on track to see if there are any other drivers close together. There aren't. So after Bogle's retirement, that pushes Ely Clark back up to 5th place. Only 4.8 seconds behind Galetti. So are they putting in... So Ely Clark is able to put in 124.9. Galetti is 127.0. So someone's spreading the cones out in those final corners. I wonder if Ely Clark, look at the gap for Ely Clark, 1.3 seconds. So she has lap time advantage. You can see her quarry ahead of us. She's coming up to the bridge section. So she may yet get back 4th place, but she's only got one more lap to do it as the leader has crossed the line. We're now on the final lap for all the leaders, gaining heavily on the brakes. Has so much pace. Dives to the inside, not quite enough room there. So this is a dice right to the line. Gonna have to keep an eye on the leaders to see where they are on the track. But Ely Clark does have the pace. She's just got to be sensible about where she uses that pace. So 0.5 of a second between 4th and 5th. What can she gain through the Maggots and Beckett section? Hopefully those lap cars don't come into play. Run slightly wide onto the curb. And that might be her last challenge. We saw that the Lotus was getting out of shape in qualification, so that may be her last gasp. So Martino coming through the final few turns through Brooklands. Leader, not by much, 1.3 seconds. Salvaggio has put up a bit of a fight, but Vito Martino will come across the line to win the British Grand Prix at Silverstone. Salvaggio in 2nd. Stoy, that's a very good result, coming back to 3rd. Keeping those tyres alive. But still this battle for 4th and 5th. Ely Clark tried to step up the inside on this corner, but I think she's now run out of corners. So close, but no cigar unless you can do something. Can't quite get the power down. So Martino will come away with the win. So making up for that 7th place at Monaco last time out. And putting in a stellar performance. All of these drivers putting in a stellar performance. Salvaggio is celebrating with some donuts. And I'm not really surprised. So hell of a result for a lot of these drivers. Many different strategies out there that are trying something a little bit different for change. And we came away with a race that was full of excitement towards the end. Very, very exciting. So Vito Martino, I believe this is his first win of the season. So you've got to be happy with that. Got to be happy with that indeed. So let's have a look at what the result is, and we'll mark off our points. So let's have a look at the race results. So race results are Martino came away with the win. It came down to the last 5-6 laps. He was able to catch back up to Salvaggio. Couldn't quite hang on for second place, but Stoy coming up from 6th on the grid and comes away with a podium. So that's our championship leader. Comes away with some good points for 3rd. Giletti, first time back since the first round where he got a 3rd place. He gets 4th this time. Ely Clark, a couple of mistakes early on, which cost her. Maybe he could have been on the podium with those guys, but unfortunately an accident and a 2-stop strategy on soft tyres. Maybe that was the wrong choice, but we'll never know. We will never know. Then we have Volker in 6th. Looking down my list where Volker is in the championship. There he is. Volker is in 6th, and then we have Schuerkamp in 7th. Schuerkamp in 7th, there we are. And we got Schremser in 8th. Schremser in 8th in the McLaren. And Josef Müller was our last of our finishers. So the last of our point scorers. Unfortunately, Matthias Bogle will not score. So possibly an engine blow-up for Bogle. We did see a couple of cars going up in flames, one of which was it was the Joe Reebok, his Ligier Renault gave away, and Thomas Rosa. We're not sure what happened to Thomas Rosa in that final portion of the race, but unfortunately DNS for those guys. So that's our Silverstone round over and done with. Whilst I total up the points, let's have a look at the schedule coming up. So we have the Straights of Hockenheim. I believe it's possibly going to be the 19s version of Hockenheim. That means long straights in these cars, slipstreaming, so maybe the turbos might have an advantage again at that track, but we'll have to wait and see. So that is going to be very exciting to watch. Excuse me. And then we head to Monza. Monza, another track which has some interesting straights and fast corners. So what drivers can hang on? We've seen a lot of out-of-shape cars today, and I'm wondering whether Monza might be the same as we had today, fast and trying to keep those rear tyres under control. And then our last round heading to Adelaide on the 8th of June. That will be the finale of our season. But until then, we'll see what the championship has in store. So I've totaled up the points. This is the provisional points. We'll have to get it run by the stewards to see if there's anything that needs changed. But our seating standings so far. So Michael Stoy stays at the top of the timesheets. In fact, the championship table, not the timesheets. And is leading by 6 points. That's quite big in terms of the points that are on offer. So 20 for a win, 16 for second, and I believe 14 for third. So Salvaggio with that second place is popped up to second place in the championship. Ely Clark not far behind, only 2 points. Third in the championship. Martino level on points with Ely Clark going into what is the 5th round. So that's very, very close. A little bit of a gap for Johann Neuenhoff, who unfortunately wasn't here today. So 26 points. He's now level on points with Giletti. Giletti 6th. Good result from today. Could have done maybe a little bit better, that front row, but dropped back to 4th place. Close towards the end between him and Ely Clark. But Bogle will be ruining that, possibly an engine blow-up at the end. 7th place, 22 points, level with Josef Müller. And then we have Ronnie Ruger and Hugh Schauerkamp right at the end. So thank you for watching, everybody. I have been your host, Neil Wood. It's been a very interesting race and very exciting race. I've really, really enjoyed that. But join us next time at Hockenheim. That will be some interesting long drafting down those straights and possibly some overtakes into those mighty chicanes. So yeah, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.